Welcome back to The Explainer. Today we're going to play Art Detective and uncover the hidden history of pearls, specifically looking through the lens of London's National Portrait Gallery. You know, when you walk through a museum filled with the faces of Britain's most powerful historical figures, it is just so easy to look at the faces and move on. But today, we're going to learn a completely new way to look at history. We're going to decode the canvas.
So think about pearls today. You're probably picturing a classic accessory, right? Maybe something elegant you'd wear to a high society gala or a formal event. But centuries ago, completely different story. Back then, they operated as the absolute cutthroat symbol of authority. If you really want to understand power in British history, you don't just follow the crowns or the money, you follow the pearls.
Section 1. The ultimate power flex, pearls before diamonds.
When you're walking through the gallery, you've really got to look closely. We are so conditioned these days to look for sparkling diamonds, but before diamonds were fashionable, pearls were what truly ruled Europe. When artists were commissioned for these massive royal portraits, they weren't just painting jewels to make the subject look pretty. No, they were quite literally painting power and the divine right to rule directly onto the canvas. For the British elite, pearls signaled immense wealth, absolute authority, and God-given sovereignty for literally everyone to see.
Section 2. The Virgin Queen's Pearls, Elizabeth I.
Let's talk about Elizabeth I, arguably the most famous Tudor monarch and without a doubt the most heavily pearl-encrusted ruler in the history of the world. Foreign dignitaries and ambassadors visiting her court didn't just casually mention her nice jewelry, they actively described her as being drenched in pearls. It was this overwhelming, highly calculated display designed to leave international visitors completely speechless. If you look at any of her famous portraits, the real symbol of her monarchy, the one element she absolutely coated herself in, were the pearls.
Just take a second to let this number truly sink in. 2,000. When the Queen passed away, her estate catalog revealed a staggering 2,000 dresses in her wardrobe, and a massive chunk of them were completely encrusted with these precious gems. We're not talking about a couple of nice statement necklaces here. This was an entire wardrobe weaponized to display unimaginable wealth on a daily basis. You have to remember, she was a monarch crowned at just 25 years old, so these pearls served a vital, highly strategic dual purpose. On one hand, they were actively screaming immense worldly wealth and power to her rivals, but on the other hand, they were projecting absolute moral purity. She cultivated the image of the Virgin Queen, and for her, pearls were deeply tied to the concepts of chastity. It was literally the perfect gemstone to showcase both her unassailable political authority and her untouchable moral standing.
Part 3. Men, Pearls, and Power, Expanding the Empire. Now, it's a pretty common misconception today to view pearls as strictly feminine. You might be wondering, did the rugged explorers, the kings, and the generals of the era actually rely on delicate white gems to project dominance? Well, the answer is a resounding yes, and it completely changes how we view these guys. The men actively building the empire were just as draped in this symbolism.
Look at incredibly well-connected court favorites like Sir Walter Raleigh, who was a massive player in England's global ambitions. Or even look at King Charles I. They both famously rocked pearl earrings. And in this context, it wasn't just about showing off personal wealth. It was a very deliberate, very public flex that England was rapidly becoming a massive world power. Wearing that earring was basically saying, we are expanding, we are insanely wealthy, and we are a global force to be reckoned with.
Section 4. A global royal symbol, beyond British borders. And this visual language wasn't just a British phenomenon, it completely crossed borders, becoming a truly international currency of royalty. Take Queen Mary II, for example, who was incredibly popular in both Britain and the Netherlands. The pearls, prominent in her beautiful Dutch portraits, highlight a shared universal code. Whether you were in London or Amsterdam, the pearls stood for wealth, power, beauty, and chastity among the European elite. It was a language the ruling class recognized instantly all over the world.
Section 5. Decoding the Portrait Gallery, a new way to look. Look, when most people walk the halls of the National Portrait Gallery, they unfortunately just glance at a face, read the little nameplate, and totally walk right past the best details. So as an art detective, I'm challenging you to follow these 3 steps next time. First, look past the faces. Second, get close and spot the hidden pearls. Maybe it's a really subtle belt or a cuff lining you'd normally miss. And third, once you spot them, decode the power and read the hidden historical story woven directly into those garments. Because honestly, once you know what to look for, everything changes. You stop seeing just a collection of old faces in a dusty gallery. Instead, you start seeing power,
You start seeing complex political identity, and you start hearing the quiet language of royalty speaking directly to you across the centuries. In Britain, these weren't just pieces of jewelry. They were living history, painting a vibrant picture of ambition and empire.
Which leaves us with this final, fascinating thought. Now that you know pearls are history and not just jewelry, it really makes you wonder about our world today. If pearls were the absolute, unquestionable status symbol of the past, what everyday items around you right now are secretly projecting absolute power? What modern symbols of dominance are hiding in plain sight, just waiting for a future art detective to decode them? Keep your eyes open, because the quiet language of power is always being spoken. Thanks for joining me on this explainer, and I'll see you next time.